You're listening to a Mel and Kim Productions podcast.
Renee Gracie.
Renee Gracie.
It's Renee Gracie.
Father Renee Gracie.
Renee Gracie.
Renee Gracie.
Hello and welcome to In the Backseat with me, Renee Gracie. Join me on this captivating ride as I speak to fascinating people who have dared to take unconventional roads to success. Let's buckle up and take the ride together. Welcome to another episode of In the Backseat with Renee Gracie. Today we have a very special guest, Hughesy.
Yes.
David Hughes, hello.
Hey, Renee.
Welcome.
Great to be here on your podcast. It's a good setup you've organised.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. So good to have you on. And I was sort of just giving you a brief rundown of what everything's about and what we're going to try and get to today, because I feel like you're going to have a really incredible story, which I'm really excited to dive into. But the first thing I want to know about you is, what was life like for little Hughesy? Where did you grow up? Where have you come from? And how have you come to us as now Hughesy?
Yeah, I've always been Hughesy since I was nickname Hughesy since I was like probably 4 or 5. I had that nickname. So that's been, almost 50 years of a nickname now. I grew up in a country Victoria, a town called Warrnambool, which is 3 hours west of Melbourne, 3-hour drive west of Melbourne. So on the coast. And born at the end of 1970, and so I this is my we lived in a commission house, so we weren't rich people. So so that was where I started off my life and lived there till I was basically 21, and then moved to Perth. So that's. I was a shy little kid, really.
Really?
So, yeah, absolutely.
When you were growing up, you were shy?
Yeah, I was shy. I was also an overthinker. But I was also, I just wanted to be the hero. I always wanted to be the hero. I wanted to be a sporting hero. I wanted to have attention. I wanted to be famous. But so I was always wanting to be famous, but also very shy. So,
right. Is where you grew up in Warrnambool, is that like a sporting sort of area? Is like rurally, I could imagine it's probably got something that it's known for?
Yeah, well, it's AFL, Aussie rules, and cricket. It was traditional back in the day where it was cricket in summer and Australian rules football in winter, which is mainly all of Victoria, basically. So I was very keen on cricket and also Aussie rules, and so always playing those sports and wanting to be the best at those sports.
It never worked out for you, though.
No, I was cricket. I used to get too nervous when I was really good in the nets when you're practicing, but then I'd get out in the middle and then I just couldn't handle the pressure, and funnily enough, I couldn't handle being heckled by people. So being sledged. So when the opposition fielders are around, just, I felt like everyone was mocking me, basically.
Yeah, wow.
I remember walking off the field after getting another 0 score and everyone laughing at me, just feeling humiliated. But eventually those laughs became what I looked for.
You're fishing for them now.
Yes. So I used to walk a lot. I remember walking along the street as a kid, just paranoid that everyone was laughing at me and hating it,
Yeah, wow.
And now I want them to laugh at me.
So when was that transition then? So what was that turning point of you sort of starting out in your career in radio and obviously having a background of being a bit nervous about what people think? What was the transition like, and when did you know you wanted to sort of be in that limelight and get actual legit criticism?
I know. So I suppose I remember in grade 6 when I must have been about 11, a school camp that we had, and then I got laughs in some sort of improvised play that we did. And I remember those laughs being intoxicating, and then. But I didn't follow it. I was, growing up in a country town, you don't think comedy is a career that you can actually, make a living at, really. So, but when I was in high school, I went to a Christian Brothers college. We were Catholic. And I remember getting heaps of laughs in a year 11 religious education class where the Christian brother who was in charge of the class, he didn't have much control. He was a bit senile, basically. And I did an improvised speech on someone called Sally Trench, which is, it was an English woman who used to help the homeless. And I remember in this class, hadn't prepared my speech. I didn't do it. Now I look back and it looks like I'm a classic ADHD person because all the symptoms are there of someone who just couldn't focus. So I didn't prepare the speech, but I opened a book on this person and then just started talking. And I got the whole class laughing they were just in stitches. And the class had to they had to give you a score out of 10 for your speech. And I got 10 out of 10 from everyone.
Yeah, wow.
But you know what? That Christian brother failed me. I actually got one of the only classes I failed in my whole secondary school was that class.
Because you were too funny.
I was too funny and he didn't like it. So he gave me an F and I see them a report card. I got an F for the whole year because of that speech. But that's the speech that really got my mind going about being a comedian. So,
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So you're at a Christian school, Christian college.
Yeah.
What could you
Catholic.
possibly have been joking? What were you joking about? Do you remember
I can't
exactly?
remember. Her name was Sally Trench, and whatever the way I did it, I can't actually remember what I said, but however I did it, just got the whole class in stitches. And I wasn't the most popular kid. I wasn't the alpha leader of the pack at all. But yeah, I was just able to make people laugh, and so I had the idea of being a comedian. So it was in my head from probably the age of 14 or 15. I thought I want to be a comedian.
So you got that taste for making people laugh and giggle, and you sort of got. Hang on a second,
there's something in this,
potentially
and then
be something.
I had a few times where I'd win a trophy at for my footy club. I'd win a trophy, and then I'd get on stage just to collect the trophy, but able to make people laugh. So just. For whatever reason, I just had something that was I'm going to say I had a gift of making
you must,
people
because
laugh.
I think I'm funny, but I don't think I could be a comedian. So I think it's a bit of a gift, isn't it? It's how you can sort of
see the world,
people.
So
and you must be able to. You probably realise that you had maybe a skill or a gift, but you must have recognised that you could have grown it and actually made it into something and be better. I know being funny is one thing, but reading a room, making sure you're making the appropriate jokes at the right time and knowing who you're talking to and what to make jokes about. How did that develop? Because I can assume that that's probably something that you might have made a few mistakes on.
Absolutely.
And put yourself in some positions where you've gone, oh, fuck, I didn't read the room very good, or I didn't do that right. How do you... As you start to make a career being a funny guy, how do you navigate that space of making sure you're appropriate, you're doing the right thing, and you're also being funny to the right people at the right places?
Yeah. So I didn't I had it in the back of my head that I could be a comedian, but again, I didn't express it, and I went to university. First uni course I did was information technology. That's IT. That's like just before the internet started, really. So, but I quit that after 6 weeks because I couldn't focus. Then I did 2 years of a business degree. Quit that at the end because I failed everything. I just couldn't focus. So, but I did have in my head I want to do comedy. So we're talking. I'm 21 now. I want to do comedy. My parents are like they're disappointed because I was probably the first one in my family to go to university. I mean, when I could focus, I did well at school. I was a smart kid, but I just had trouble focusing. So they're like, we're going to be paying his rent for the rest of his life. This is terrible. But I moved to Perth actually at the age of 21, and that's in my head was start comedy in Perth. It's a long way from country Victoria, so I can fail in private almost.
Yeah, no one knows
so
who
I
am.
Yeah. So I went over there, and then there was a little comedy club, and I thought I'm going to give this a go. First time I tried actual stand-up comedy where you're actually meant to be funny, where if you're a stand-up comedian in a stand-up comedy room, it's different to doing a speech at a wedding where no one really expects you to be funny, or you speech at a 21st, and which I would always get good laughs. But in a comedy room, when you walk on stage, you're telling that whole audience that you think you're funny.
Yeah.
And the first night I was horrific. The pressure just hit me straight away. The spotlight was on me. I felt like I was being interrogated. I was not getting any laughs at all. And part of my brain's going, you're a loser. You've burned all your bridges. You thought you were funny. You're clearly not funny.
Yeah, we're done.
These 60 people are telling you you're a deluded dickhead. It was horrific.
Do you think there's people from that room of your first comedy festival that remember you going, oh, fuck, I remember him. He's not funny at all?
I wonder.
Do you think you've redeemed yourself?
Look, I think I have.
Yeah, I think so.
That first night was just horrible. And in that little room, there was no backstage. So to leave the venue, you had to walk through the crowd.
Oh.
And so I get off stage.
It's like a walk of shame.
Yes. And I'd done jokes about being teased at school, and as I'm walking out, I remember one mean person from the audience just going, "They were right to tease you."
Yeah.
I'm like, this is terrible. And I was
Tell him to jump up on stage then if he's the funny guy.
I was living with a guy. Well, I was flat sharing with a mate of mine who's still a mate to this day, and his nickname is Rat. He's a bricklayer, but so back then I'm 21 and maybe just turned 22. I'm sharing this flat with Rat, and I got back to the flat in Perth in a place called Scarborough, and he said, "How'd you go?" And I said, "Not very well." He said, "Do you know why?" And I said, "Oh, not really." And he looks at me. This friend of mine looks at me and says, "Because you're not funny." So that was the first night of my comedy career.
Wow.
Which the audience saying I'm not funny, one of my best friends saying I'm not funny.
Yeah.
My own brain telling me I'm not funny.
Yeah, tough initiation.
But you know what? I thought actually if I don't go back the next week, I'll never do it again.
Yeah.
Because it's so humiliating.
Yeah,
So
I
I
can
went back
imagine.
to the same venue the next week and was able to get up again and left with my dignity.
Yeah.
I didn't have a great gig, but I didn't lose my shit.
Yeah, you felt better.
I felt like I'm in control of my emotions. The first week I just was a puddle of tears basically. So yeah, but the third gig I ever did, which was a few months later, and there was actually an ad in the paper that said new comics required. This is a local West Australian newspaper. And I thought, fuck, I need to have another go. Otherwise I'll never do it. I'm going to have another go. So I rang the phone number, and it was the same little venue. And I didn't even realise it was the same venue.
Yeah, right.
And the guy who answered the phone said, "I remember you from like a couple of months before. You weren't that bad. You should have another go." So this guy who said that helped me go, fuck, I really should have another go. And that third time I got on stage, I walked on stage and for some reason I just relaxed. Something came over me and said, "You've got nothing to prove. You're a winner for just doing this."
Yeah.
There's no, and it just relaxed me so much. That the laughs I got that night, that third time ever in 1993, I'm still chasing those laughs.
Yeah.
that
was your first high.
It was the highest of highs, where I'm on stage thinking I'm right. Yes, this is the right thing for me to do. And I just knew that night. I knew that night that my career was set.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's the progression from there? You start to be successful and go to a lot of these stand-up things?
Yeah, so I started in Perth. I started because I was hit and miss because I was really naive and I hadn't really seen how stand-up comedy was done. I didn't think I could do the same joke twice.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'd go back to the same venue and do
That'd be hard.
I'd do new material all the time because I
Yeah.
thought if I didn't do new material, the barman would yell out, I heard it last week.
Yeah.
So I was really loose. Other comedians were looking at me going, what the fuck are you doing this for? Because it's hit or miss. You know, sometimes you crash, sometimes you fly.
Yeah.
But in about 6 months, I started to get more proficient and I started getting paid. First time I ever got paid for comedy was so exciting. It was maybe $150 or something, but it was like this real money
Yeah.
for being funny.
Yeah.
It was just an exciting moment for me.
Yeah, I could imagine.
And so from there, I started going better in Perth and I thought I've got to go to a bigger city to make a career of it. So I moved to Melbourne about a year and a half later. And started again fresh. And first gig in Melbourne was bad. Again, put too much pressure on myself,
Yeah.
thinking I have to prove myself. But then a couple of gigs into Melbourne, I started finding my feet again. And so absolutely been full-time comedian since 1996, really. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. And what's it like, this without sounding rude, back then when you don't have social media as such, to really get a name for yourself? What was your forefront of mind to, you obviously moved, so that was probably one of the first things to go, right, how am I going to grow? How am I going to make a name for myself? What are other things that you did if you didn't sort of you couldn't post reels of all your funny jokes online?
Yeah.
What was that process like?
Well, it was just getting, as I say to any comedian or anyone who wants to be a comedian, back in the day, it was just get on stage as much as possible. So around Melbourne, there was probably 4 or 5 regular comedy venues where comedians could perform in front of various audiences from probably 30 people to maybe 300. So get on stage as much as possible. I'd turn up to every comedy venue and just wait, and maybe someone didn't turn up that night, so you jump on.
You're ready to
because
go.
You're ready to go. So having a passion for it was the main thing. And then hopefully you want to get on TV or radio. So I ended up on TV, you know, Hey Hey It's Saturday. You've heard of that show?
Yes. I don't think I was around, or that was early days, but I have seen cuts and bits and pieces of it, and people refer to it all the time.
So it was a very famous show back in the 80s and 90s and maybe the 2000s, but yeah, definitely the 90s when I was studying my comedy. So there was actually a segment on the show called Red Faces, which is like an amateur sort of talent competition where they would gong you out, because they're looking for people to be bad, so they can mock them.
Yeah.
But some people get through, and it makes people pop. Some people got popular from doing it. I auditioned for that twice. And this is so amateurs. They're looking for amateurs. I'm already a working comedian.
Yeah.
And I do these auditions, and the first one I didn't get through. The second audition, it's just you're doing auditions in front of one person. He's looking at a clipboard, and I said to him, he wouldn't even look at me. I said, mate, can you look at me? I'm doing an audition here.
Yeah.
And he got the security guard to walk me out of Channel 9.
Oh,
He
my God.
He thought I was going to get violent. So, but then not long after that, I got a professional spot on Hey Hey It's Saturday, as in not for the talent show,
Yeah.
but just as a comedian.
Yeah.
And and that went really well.
Did you see that guy again who did the auditions
Yeah, he didn't
and
even
walked
remember
past
me.
it?
He didn't even remember me.
I would have been doing these ones as I
Well,
walked
I was
past
trying to
him.
get his attention, but he didn't remember
He
me.
still wasn't looking. He still wasn't
looking. So I did a good spot on that show, and that was a dream as well. It's probably the most nervous I've ever been. So growing
Was
up,
that live? It
it was live.
It was
That
live TV. Wow.
It was Saturday night. It was 6:30. And it was a big show before social media, before all these streaming platforms. So there was TV was
That was it.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
And
radio as well.
Yeah, radio. But I was so nervous, mate. I was trying to stop my leg shaking. So I was really but it went well because I'd practiced and I'd done so many gigs. It's like anything. If you do the work, and you trust the work.
Yeah.
If you put the work in, no matter what you're doing, it actually pays off. So that went really well. It didn't really affect my crowd numbers initially, but I was on the way. And then I ended up with a TV gig on the ABC, a TV show called The Glass House, which is a once a week comedy show, which I was one of the regulars on, and then a radio contract after that. And so, by the time I got to actually I was on the dole though. I was on the dole from 1993 when I quit uni through to 1999. So 6 years of putting in.
Yeah, the hard work and not getting much for it.
Not getting much money. The first comedy gig I did on Hey Hey It's Saturday was a joking about being on the dole.
Oh.
Which I actually, and I was on the dole.
Yeah, so you could joke about it.
So I did a really good gig about being on the dole, and then the next week I turned up to Centrelink to put my form in again.
Yeah. So, and they're like, hey, we saw what you said about us, fuck you.
So but by 99 I did the Melbourne Comedy Festival Gala, and I really wanted to get on that because I thought that would help, and that really helped. That's like a lineup show they do every year for the Melbourne Comedy Festival, and I got on that, and then the next day my ticket sales basically went 10 times up.
Yeah, wow.
So that was the moment. 99 was the moment where all of a sudden, I realised I wouldn't be on the dole anymore.
Yeah, that's good. How do you navigate with all of these things like radio, like hosting radio stations or segments sort of back in the day before you sort of transitioned when you were doing these little segments? How do you go with writing the content? What's that process like? Do they come to you and say, just be funny, or will they guide you and tell you what to say? How do you navigate on how to make jokes?
It's really much just be funny. So, but I started off just doing a phone into not a commercial station, one of the public stations called Triple R, which is in Melbourne. It's like a public station that it's funded by subscribers,
Yeah, okay.
But they would ring me once a week, and I would use some of my stand-up routines on the radio, but make it appear more natural. But it's always have the jokes ready. Life is always funny.
Yeah.
There's no matter whoever you are, life is always funny. It's mainly whether you see it or not.
Yeah.
So when you see the comedy, you note it down, and then you retell it. And that's what I've been doing for the last 30 years, basically.
Yeah.
So,
and how do you go with that too, with actually drawing the line between living life and maybe sharing too much information or not enough, or do you care at all, or are you cautious?
You know what? When I first started comedy, and early on in my career, actually I had my girlfriend at the time when I'd already done comedy, and she'd seen me on stage. So she knew, I think me being on stage helped me, pick her up, let's be honest. because you become more attractive when you're on stage. There's no doubt about
Well,
it.
I definitely think you're more attractive when you're funny. I'll say that much.
Yeah, well, combine funny with an
get
on-stage
extra
presence
points,
where
yeah.
people see you commanding the attention of an audience.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that makes you sexy. Oh, look, I'm no doubt about that. So she'd see me on, and she'd, I think part of the reason why she was attracted to me was because of that. But she would get a bit weird about stuff I would talk about. But I'd say, look, you knew what I did. So
Yeah.
sharing my life has always been a thing, and you just want to continue it. There is a line, sometimes you cross it, but I've been married to my wife now for a long time, since 2006 basically. So, and she also, I was on radio and I was a famous person in Melbourne when she met me. So she knew as well. So, people know if they enter my sphere that I'm going to end up talking about whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's anything to worry about. So I'm all for sharing as much as possible. And my children now, they're also, and sometimes they crack the shits. My son recently, someone chased him because of his runners, and the guys had a knife and said he was going to kill him.
Oh.
So I talked about it on radio, and then I get a text message from him. Don't talk about that. Fucking hell, mate.
Oh, because he was just embarrassed or
He's
still
embarrassed
upset about
him, yeah. So, yeah,
Are you
anyway.
a cool dad?
Not really, no. But you know what?
Do they think? Wait, this is the most important question. Do they think you're funny?
I don't
That's
know,
a
but
no.
Look, I've done this as a stand-up routine, but this is a true story. But I think it was last year. I did a gig with Shaquille O'Neal, the NBA legend.
Oh, yeah,
He's
yeah,
a big, sort
yeah.
of massive legend from years ago, but he's still massive. My son's a big NBA fan. And so I was doing a gig with Shaquille O'Neal. He'd come to Australia, and my son said, can I come? He never wants to come and see me, but he'd never seen me before, do stand-up comedy. And
Yeah.
he came and he watched from the back while I was on stage. And then we're at home, and afterwards, and he goes, he's like 14 or 13 or 14 at the time. He goes, Dad, I had no idea you could make people laugh like that. And I'm like, well, how do you think we got this house, fuckhead? Have a look where you're living, mate.
Yeah.
How do you think this happened?
Yeah, where does it come from?
Yeah, it's not your mum's teacher's wage. So yeah, but that's a true story. But yeah, so they see what I do. But if you're not famous on TikTok, you're not famous to them really.
Yeah,
so
yeah, and that's
it's a
true.
new generation.
It is.
It's all about TikTok
Yeah,
and bloody
I
that
know.
bullshit.
What are you on social media as much and TikToks and stuff now?
I'm trying, to be honest. I've got a big Instagram profile, but not really TikTok.
TikTok, yeah,
But
I was gonna say, I haven't seen
again,
you on TikTok.
you're trying to find the audience, and that's that new audience who aren't as, they're not really watching mainstream TV.
Yeah.
So I am on it.
Yeah.
Well, I would like more followers. You can find me.
Yeah, shout out, follow. Give yourself a plug. Follow me on
D.
TikTok.
Husey, I think. Yeah, check me out.
You're listening to In the Backseat with Renee Gracie.
Going to radio now, so you've sort of done your comedy stuff
Yeah.
and you sort of transitioned from doing comedy stuff on TV and then you got radio gigs. What
Yeah.
was that? How was that journey? And you've obviously, you're so prominent on radio now and I
Yeah.
feel like everyone's heard you on the radio once
At
in their
some point.
lifetime.
Yeah.
So how do you get to be, a comedian essentially to someone who has a massive, massive radio gig?
Yeah, look, comedians have always sort of found a way in radio over the years in Australia, which is great. So that was sort of part of my, not really, I'd never really verbalised a plan, but I probably thought that radio was a good way as a comedian to make a living, to be honest. So, again, I went from like doing sort of spots on public radio to spots on like Triple M and stuff, and was always able to make an impact. So, when Nova, the radio brand Nova, started in Melbourne, they just started in Sydney the year before, but they started in Melbourne back in 2001. They came to me and Kate Lambrook and Dave O'Neill, and they're like, "Can you start the breakfast show for us?" So I hadn't done full-time radio before then, so I knew that I'd love radio, and I love talking to people. I love hearing people's stories. So I love hearing callers' stories, and I'd done overnight radio, like on public radio, like middle of the night, just go from like midnight through till 6 a.m. just talking to drunks. And, but I really,
people calling in.
I'd
Can
really-
you play this song?
but I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So that was something I did know I liked. And so when they offered that to start this new radio station in Melbourne, I said yes. And look, it was immediately a hit, basically. It just went straight away. It connected with the audience. And so that was the start of what has been a long radio journey for me. So.
How is it give the listeners some insight. I think we probably take for granted radio a little bit. We all listen to it. We all sort of consume it. But what's something that you love, or what's something that people might not know, or give us the inside goss on radio and what there is to know about it, because I feel like this generation and people now potentially might not appreciate radio as much as maybe what past generations have.
I love the immediacy of radio. I love that, you can think of something and just say it and there's no filter. So
is that scary though? Can you get yourself in trouble doing that?
Yeah. But people say me to stand up comedy and I can swear a lot, and they go, why don't you swear on radio? I said, well, because it's like you're not allowed to. So it's like if you're on the edge of a cliff, you can't jump off.
Yeah.
So that's but the connection with the audience is fantastic with radio. What people don't know is that they can just ring you and talk to you, and whether you're in Sydney or Melbourne or or a smaller market, whatever, there is a connection there with an audience who can just get around what you're doing. So I've always loved radio, and I love trying to be as honest as possible on radio. So and be able to sort of share your triumphs, but also share your faults and share your inadequacies.
And have the conversations about things. Yeah.
It's like in life, real friends are someone who'll laugh at your problems with you.
Yeah.
So you need people, when things go wrong in your life, you need to be able to ring someone and they'll have a laugh and go, well, that is fucked.
Yeah.
And they'll see the comedy in it or see the humour in it. So that's a lot of friends of mine, when they do a bad stand-up comedy gig or, a corporate gig where no one fucking listens or something, their immediate thought is to ring me and tell me, because they know I'll enjoy it.
Yeah. And it makes them feel that little bit better.
So they can laugh, and then I'll say, well, I did one and that was shit as well. And, so.
Yeah, you've got relatable ground.
Yeah.
One thing I will say is your relationship with Kate Langbroek that's gone on for 18 years. You've had
longer than that.
That radio.
She started in that first radio show at Nova. So in 2001. So we're talking. We're not on air at the moment together, but so we've had a relationship that's gone for a long time. So
and
since 2001.
What's that like, navigating a work relationship with someone for such a long period of time?
Yeah, well, like anything, you have your good and your bad times. I remember she had maternity leave, and then when she came back, she just took over straight away, because when anyone leaves a show or has a break from a show, then whoever's left on the show has to try to keep the home fires burning.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yep.
So she came back from maternity leave, and she had 4 kids in a row, and I don't know what I said. I think I might have said she needs to relax and just pump the brakes a bit and just ease your way back in, and she cracked it and didn't come to work for 3 days or something. So. So we've all that's just one aspect. You have your moments,
it happens,
but it's that has been a long relationship, and we'll see what happens in the future. But,
to be able to work together for someone for that long, regardless, sometimes, most of the time, you probably wouldn't say it ends very well for most people, because you just get sick of each other. But at the end of the day, to have a relationship, professional working relationship, it's quite an achievement and something to be quite proud of.
Yeah, I'm certainly someone who and this is just not in that relationship or in any relationship, just stay in the moment. The older I get, the more I just realise that never hold a grudge against anyone about anything.
Because I think it looks great on you, and obviously Kate as well, but to have a relationship says a lot about yourself as a person. I don't think I've ever had an 18-year-long relationship with anyone other than who people I'm related to, because I don't have a choice. I have to get along with them. But I think it says a lot about you and your character as a person to be able to maintain a relationship and a working relationship for that long.
Yeah, so if you stay in the moment, that's, again, like anything. If you stay in the moment, every moment's fresh, so you don't get sick of people.
Yeah.
Having said that, we haven't worked together for a few years now, but she went to Italy and then stopped. She wanted to stop the show, so I kept going on radio.
Yeah, life gets in the way, which is fine, but to still have held the relationship.
She stayed in my flat the other night, actually.
Yeah.
So I got a flat in Sydney that she stayed in. So
yeah, I think it says a lot. It's really good. What a part of all of this, coming and growing and being a comedian, getting on radio, can you tell us about any really pivotal points? Was there any points maybe when you were like on the dole where you were really like down and out? Did you have any really pivotal moments in your life that, you still remember to this day and hold on quite tightly to?
Look, back in 1990, it was funny. 1998, I decided I'd been on Hey At Saturday. I'd done well on that show, I'd say that's a big moment, but I still wasn't gathering an audience, and I was, still on the dial. So I was and friends of mine, I saw they'd get, they'd got radio or TV opportunities which I hadn't got, and I was annoyed. And I actually moved to England just before I turned 28. So I was 27. And I moved to England and started doing stand-up comedy over there. So, and that started going well. And then I got a contract, but I was fucking homesick because I didn't have any friends over there. And I got my girlfriend was back in Australia and we hadn't broken up. So it was weird long-distance relationship. But I got an opportunity to work on a Full Frontal, which is it was a TV show, a sketch comedy show on Channel 7 or somewhere, and it was a contract. I never had a contract before, and it wasn't for much money at all.
Yeah.
But it was to write 1 minute of comedy a week for this show. And so I got this contract and I thought, fuck, I'm going to fly back and do this contract. And then, it's funny thing is when I got back to Australia, my career just took off. I don't know why, but it was sometimes I think going to England and doing comedy in foreign, it strengthened me maybe.
Yeah.
And it improved what I was as a comedian. So when I came back, I was stronger and it went from there.
You're elevated.
I was elevated.
Yeah, cool. That's really interesting. Yeah, sometimes you you don't know what you have until it's gone kind of thing.
Yeah.
Maybe you leave, you sort of go somewhere, you do stuff you don't necessarily want to do, and then you're like, get me the fuck back where I need to be.
But I think it might make you stronger though. Yeah. So absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I lived in Melbourne for 4 years, and I think once I moved back home, back to Queensland, that was sort of where everything changed for me.
Just blew up.
Yeah, it was the best thing that I ever did.
Yeah.
Can you talk about your anxiety and anything else that you went through? You said in the beginning as a kid you were quite
really anxious. Really anxious, yeah.
How did you manage that growing up and obviously getting all these jobs and gigs and stuff? How did that disappear?
I was as I already said, an overthinker. So and borderline narcissist where you just feel sorry for yourself all the time. I spent so much of my life feeling sorry for myself, which I really say to my children. I've got 3 kids, they're 15, 13, 11. I say, just stop thinking about yourself. Just don't. You're not. Thinking about yourself is not going to make you happy.
Yeah.
So I'm all about enjoying life now. So and that's what really got me. I think I started reading self-help books and as a 17 or 18-year-old, I really started going, fuck, I can take charge of my mind here.
Yeah.
And I got control. I was a bad drinker as well, and I did stop drinking. So I stopped drinking. I haven't had an alcoholic drink since I was 21.
Yeah, wow.
So I'm now 53, so that's 32 years. So part of it, I think, was just get control of your mind back.
Yeah. And being sober and no alcohol and stuff probably sort of helped with that.
Well, when you are sober, you're in charge of your mood. There's
nothing else is.
Nothing.
Yeah.
I'm in charge of my mood.
Yeah.
So I don't. So yeah. So that has. I think that was a big thing in my life to stop drinking. And I don't reckon I would have had the career that I've had if I had kept. Maybe I would have, but I don't think I would have. So that was a big moment. I started comedy just after I stopped drinking. Actually. So
okay.
I don't reckon I would have had the mental fortitude to get my shit together enough to do comedy if I was still drinking.
Yeah.
So
how did the drinking come into it? Is that sort of led on from the anxiety and the way you were sort of feeling, or were you just...
I did. I was always again down on myself as a kid, and I didn't the girl. I wasn't popular with the girls, and I was. And I felt like I would fail when the real pressure came on in sporting events, and I just felt I was always feeling bad about myself. So, and maybe that's why I drank too much when I was younger. I thought it was going to make me cool, but then again, I don't know. I come from a big family of drinkers. It's the Irish in us, where it was. I think sometimes I think it's in your DNA.
Yeah.
And so, my dad, who's no longer with us, was not a good drinker, bad drinker. So, and that was stressful for the whole family for many years. So, so I saw what alcohol could do and how it could be bad for families.
Yeah.
And so I think that was part of my reason as well to stop, that I just thought that I don't want to be like that. I want to be in charge of my own mood and not fucking bring everyone down.
You didn't struggle with trying to stay sober. It sounds like when you sort of made the decision and you've made that click that if I can achieve all of this if I stay sober, but I'm sure I've been to plenty of events with you, and I've been in areas with you where obviously it's, there's alcohol and there's stuff.
Of course.
Are you tempted by it?
Not not initially.
In the beginning?
Initially, I was, but at the time I was 20. I think I was 21. I'd spent 12 months like unemployed. I'd quit uni, so I was trying to be an Aussie rules footballer. I was getting $100 a game for a local club, but I was so stressed about it that it just didn't work out. I felt terrible, and as soon as I stopped drinking, I started to feel better.
Yeah.
So I realised that I actually stopped in November. And I'd been on a shocking binge, and I stopped, and I thought I won't drink for 6 weeks till Christmas, and then I felt better in that 6 weeks, and I got to Christmas Eve, and then that was the pivotal moment. It's Christmas Eve, 1992, where I was like, "Fuck, I drink again," and it just occurred to me, you'll just be like you were before. Fuck it, don't drink anymore, and so that was the moment.
Yeah, wow.
Christmas Eve, 1992, where I said, "No, I'm not drinking tonight. I'm off it."
Yep.
And it took a while for my friends to realise I was serious.
Yeah, and stop offering you drinks. That would
But
have been
you know
hard.
what? They quickly came around to it, and you realise that peer pressure's bull doesn't actually exist. It's all in your head.
Yep.
Yeah. So life just improved gradually from that moment to the point where you just wouldn't want to risk it by drinking again.
Yeah, yep. And what other things have you done? I've sort of seen and read that you're a vegan as well. When did that come into it?
Yeah,
Are you vegan?
I am vegan. Yeah, that was like 5 years ago. But I'm prepared to change what I do if I think it's better for me. My children aren't vegan and my wife's not vegan, but I don't think meat's very good for you.
Yeah,
So that's I mean, I know that 99% of the population eat meat, but I don't think it's very good for you. So yeah. Well, the proof will be in the pudding. If I'm still alive at 100, maybe I've made the right choice.
And do you think that was just something else that you thought? Did you do your research and you just kind of flipped the switch like you did with alcohol? That one day you just did you go a week without eating meat and you've gone, nah, fuck it, I'm just not going to eat it for the next 5 years?
I became a pescatarian first, so that's just fish. You eat fish, and people would say you've jumped the gun here, but I watched a doco, which a lot of people have watched. I think it's called Game Changers, which is on Netflix, and it was involving, I can't remember, Arnold Schwarzenegger was on it, and he said vegetarianism is the way to go, or veganism. So I thought if it was good enough for Arnie, it's good enough for me. So I don't know whether he's back on the meat or not.
That's how easy it was, huh? Give us a little bit of an insight into all the TV stuff that you do now with being on the project and all of, you've touched on some stuff, but what stuff are you currently doing now, and how's it like being on TV? I know that you said that you loved radio and connecting with people. What's your passion and love with TV, and tell us about that?
Yeah, I've been on TV a lot over the last 25 years, really. So I suppose my TV career started basically, hey, it's Saturday, doing stand-up spots, and I would do other stand-up spots, like little 3-minute bits on TV shows for the first couple of years in the late 90s. And then I got a gig, a full-time gig on this ABC show called The Glass House, which started in 2001. That started at the same time as my radio full-time gig. So that went for like 5 or 6 years. And then I was a regular on the Rove TV show for a few years, and then I did an AFL show called Before the Game, which was a weekly show involving AFL footy. Then I've done The Project. I started that show, one of the starters of that show, and did that for 5 years. I've done the AFL footy show for a few years. I did my own show, Hughesy, We Have a Problem, for about 4 or 5 years. Did The Masked Singer for like 5 years.
Yeah.
And so this year really is the first year I haven't had a full-time TV gig. I've just filmed some TV stuff, which is going to come up early next year. But so I've always enjoyed doing TV and doing different things. So, yeah. Because
I find TV, like the stuff that you do, is like big undertakings. Like they're not just small little things that you're doing, that you've done, like doing the project and how's that process, like showing up and the content and you writing your jokes and always being on it?
Well, when I first started that, and that show started in 2009 now, so it's quite a while ago. So when we started that, we didn't know what the TV show was. I was one of the people there going, let's make it this, let's make it that. And it was actually really stressful, as in I was, again, ego. I was doing full-time radio at the time in the morning, so I'm doing breakfast radio, and then every night I'm doing a TV show. So both ends of the day. And we had 3 kids in that time, so it was like, fuck, tiny kids at home, radio early morning, afternoon and evening TV, and then still doing stand-up comedy, and then on the weekend doing an AFL-based TV show. Fucking busy.
Yeah.
So, but did it for a number of years. And but, you know, now looking back, I just think I got too anxious. It was like, what the fuck did I worry about that? No one cares.
Yeah.
What I realised over the years is that no one cares.
Yeah.
So I say to my kids and I say to anyone listening, get beyond your ego. Now, even though, you know, I've had a fucking successful career or whatever, no one gives a shit.
Yeah.
I mean, and stop fucking worrying about it.
Yeah.
Stop comparing yourself to other people because you'll always lose that battle because there's always people who are doing better than you.
Yep.
But even stop comparing yourself to you yesterday. Like comparing myself to ticket sales from past events, you know?
Yeah.
Again, I'm competing against myself.
Yeah.
It's fucking exhausting.
Yeah, it's hard work.
Stop it and just relax and laugh at life.
Yeah, yeah. And with being busy and managing that, what skills and what things do you think that you've picked up along the way from having to manage family and then also showing up with a smiley face and a happy face to go on radio, and then you're rocking up to that TV show at nighttime? How do you make sure that you're on all the time, you're doing your best and you're giving your best to all of these different people, including family?
Well, the best thing about being busy, which I said this one somewhere, and it's someone who did a book, some book put this quote in their book, and it was not an Australian. It was like I'd said something wise about the best thing about working a lot is it forces you to stay in the moment. Yeah, so that's what I like about being busy. It forces you to, like, what are we doing right now? So if you're on TV and radio every day you got to focus on that day so that you don't dwell on the past or the future.
Yep.
So I'm all for being busy in that way. And whether that's, you know, you've got your own work that makes you busy or whether you make yourself busy, stay in the moment as much as possible. So, and I look with family, if you've got family, be present with them. You know, when you're with them, stay in the moment. So, and I've spent way too much of my life with children around me, but me worried about work. It's shit. And it didn't help.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm big on now, as much as possible, working on just being here right now. Just here we are, and this is it.
In the
so
moment.
yeah, so wherever you are, so when you are with your family, you give them quality time.
Yeah. And then for anybody who is aspiring that's listening to potentially want to be a comedian, do stand-up or potentially go on radio, what advice would you give them other than staying present, just in regards to how they would attack taking the leap?
Well, just realize you've got nothing to lose. You don't have anything. It's okay. You know, so whatever you decide to do, realize it's okay and it'll be fine.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to starve. You'll always have enough money to eat in this country, thank God. But so just – again, you've got nothing to lose. So why not do it? Why not go for it? But if you do want to do comedy, just don't take it too fucking seriously, as in remember everything is funny.
Yeah.
So whether you – and, you know, when I know when I know I can't be beaten at a stand-up gig, like, you know, when people are scared of audiences, scared of public speaking, scared of, you know, the audience not laughing. When I know that I'm unbeatable is when I can be doing a gig and look down in the crowd and see someone who's not laughing, who clearly finds me boring or just clearly wants to be somewhere else.
Yeah.
But when I look at their miserable face and when that makes me laugh, I can't be beaten.
Yeah.
Because I'm laughing at failure, basically.
Yeah.
So, and to be able to laugh at failure is the best thing.
Yeah. I remember telling people when we did the Harvey Norman gig that we did and you were the MC, I remember you made the fucking funniest jokes about something, and I remember I tried to tell people, but I couldn't even emphasize. I couldn't say it in a way that you said it, and everyone would look at me like, I don't get it. I'm like, you fucking had to be there. You had to like listen because he's just so funny. And all I remember is as time went on, I forgot the joke less and less and less. And I wanted to ask you, I'm like, I wonder if he fucking remembers the joke and if you could say it. There was something about lunchboxes
Oh, fuck.
and sharks.
Shit, lunchboxes and sharks.
I used to tell people and they used to look at me like, what
Was
the
a lunchbox about my children?
something about lunchboxes, and then you transitioned it into sharks, and it was fucking hilarious. And I always used to tell people how funny it was, but the way I said it, they looked
Yeah.
at me like, what the fuck are you on about? But
I remember
just-
my son. I remember I did a joke once about I think it was my son going like I made his lunch and I opened when he got home. You look at the lunchbox to see what they've eaten or
Yeah.
his kids, and it's like you're on MasterChef to see how you've done. So
Yeah.
and I opened the lunchbox and he hadn't had his sandwich. And he said he was too busy to eat his sandwich. I'm like, you're fucking CEO of BHP, are you? You know, so,
Yeah.
I mean, you found time in your busy schedule to eat your chocolate covered Oreo, didn't you? So that was one lunchbox joke. And sharks, I used to do jokes about. I remember Mick Fanning. Do you remember Mick Fanning, the surfer? He punched a shark.
Yeah, I don't know if it was before that though. I
can't remember. I remember I've done a number of shark jokes.
Hit us with the shark one, and I'll see.
All
if that
right,
was
so
it.
Mick Fanning punched a shark, and he punched a shark and got called a hero. But I kicked my dog on an arsehole, apparently. So that was the start of this routine. So that's one of them. I don't know if it was that one.
Oh, I know. I
There's
always
heaps.
used to tell people about him. Like fucking Hughes, he was so funny. He was talking about this lunchbox, and then he told these
Yeah.
jokes about these sharks,
That's-
and we're all in stitches. But I couldn't quite tell the joke the same way.
I love being on stage. I just love it. So yeah.
How do you? Lastly, I'm really interested to know. How do you know what's funny?
Well, you've got bits that you've done before that you know are pretty much guaranteed to get a laugh. So some bits you know are solid jokes and they'll get a laugh in any setting.
Yep.
And other times you just got to take a chance if it's something connected to where you are.
Yep.
So, but you just take a chance. But you know what? If you hit it with the right attitude, it does matter, but it's all about attitude more than anything. I
Yeah.
think crowds pick up on your aura almost.
Yeah.
You pick up on your sense of calmness. And so yeah, it's if you're desperate to get a laugh, you fucking don't get it.
Yeah.
You know, so and it's like
You've learned that the hard way.
They sense that. They say if you really need it, it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So you've got to be cool with yourself to start with, and then the audience have a good time. So
Yeah, I feel like I learned that about you when I tried to retell the lunchbox joke and the shark joke. People were looking at me like I was a fucking idiot, and I'm like, it was really funny when he did it. You had to be there.
no, so often people do retell me jokes that I've done and I've forgotten about them. It's like, fuck, all right, that's a funny one. I'm going to remember that one and tell it
Oh,
again.
really?
So yeah.
Do you write? Are you someone who writes jokes down?
You'll write
now?
a note down, yeah. So you'll note it down. You might but I never follow a set list. So I never, when I'm on stage, I'm never looking at it like a musician might have
wow.
a set. A lot of comedians have set lists of might be one word which tells them, that reminds them of a joke, and
Yeah.
you might have 40 words on a sheet of paper which they look down at. And I've done that before, but I don't do that anymore. I just fucking wing. I don't wing it, but it's all in my head, and I just let it come out.
Wow,
basically.
that's pretty impressive, to be honest, because I thought you probably would have had
No, I don't have a cheat
some
sheet.
sort of rehearsal or practice or something to guide you in the direction
you
of
have
where
a
you
guide.
go.
Your guide is internally rehearse it, like in your mind, as
Yeah.
to how it might go. But you know, the fresher you keep it, the better. So you don't always want to be word for word. You want to be able to attack even a same story in a different way.
Yeah.
So it makes it fresh for you and also fresh for the audience.
Did you have anyone that you lent on, like someone like a mentor or someone who you would tell, like if you, hey, I think I've thought of this really funny joke, can you just listen to it and see if it's funny? Or?
Yeah, not really, because
Yeah, okay.
you know what? You only need that person to be in a bad mood. You know,
Yeah, no.
if I tell you a joke and you're in a bad mood because of whatever bullshit's going on in your own head, and you don't
Yeah.
laugh at the joke I've told you,
But it could be a
it
good
could be
one.
funny.
Yeah.
You just didn't get it for whatever reason, and
Yep.
so I want the crowd to tell me whether something's funny. You know, not just one person. So
Yeah.
you take it to stage and see whether an audience laugh at it. And maybe they won't the first time because you didn't hit it right.
Yeah.
But maybe another audience will laugh at it, or sometimes you're sparking up the wrong tree.
Yeah.
You know, and they'll
Yep.
tell you eventually.
So it's sort of when you were sort of leaning on someone in regards to like your career, was it more like management or did you lean on anyone at all?
Not really, no.
Yeah,
I just
okay.
knew other comedians maybe. You see
Yeah.
career paths from other comedians. You think I want to follow that career path. But no, it was really pretty autonomous, really.
Yeah, wow. That's pretty, that's quite impressive, really.
Well, but I ended up realizing I just love comedy. I love laughing. Life is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
It will always be ridiculous.
Yeah.
And all you really have to do is see that. And whether you make a living at being funny, it doesn't really matter. Life is funny.
Yeah.
And it's joyous.
Yep. No, I agree. Well, thank you so much. Thank you
No
so
worries.
much for coming on.
Appreciate
That was
it.
amazing. It's an incredible journey that you've had, and you should be quite proud.
Thank you, Renee.
It's very good.
Thank
Thank you so much for coming on. We are actually going to come back because I'm going to ask you some questions. We're going
Great.
to do some rapid fire questions. So
Brilliant.
we're going to come back after the break and we're going to see what answers you have.
Excellent.
You've just listened to In the Back Seat with Renee Gracie, a Mel and Kim Productions podcast.